Hello and welcome to a special bonus episode looking ahead to Sunday's Premier League match between Arsenal and Manchester City. I'm Barney Corkill, the editor of Sports. I'm delighted to say that we've got our Arsenal expert Charles Watts and Man City expert Stephen McInerney from esteemed company with us. How are you guys? Stephen, I'll start with you. Have you recovered from the drama of last night in the Champions League and Man City almost for 1 second looking like they might not make it?
I prefer it that way. I was raised on it that way as a lifelong City fan, so I'm used to I was trying to punch ourselves in the face every now and then. No, it was good fun. Like they added a bit of jeopardy for the game because obviously it was at home, and it was a very underwhelming first half. Obviously they went ahead, which felt very familiar with the pattern of the season. Then the reaction was good. The second half felt exciting at very least, and then until the announcement of who we might play at the end for the Tannoy, which we'll talk about later, I'm sure. But yeah, it was good fun last night, and it was just nice to see City get a win in a game that meant something, because obviously our form hasn't been great. So you take anything where you can get it right now.
Yeah, and we will take a deep dive into Arsenal Man City, but I think let's look back at the Champions League for both clubs, just because it's the most immediate context to frame this game coming up at the weekend. You touched on it there, Stephen. It wasn't the most convincing performance, despite picking up that win in a game you need to win in.
No, it wasn't. Guardiola sort of tried. I don't understand why, to sort of roll it back to the treble formation with John Stones being available. He decided to put him in midfield, and but that meant left wing shift for Phil Foden, who's not played there for an awful long time. Bernardo, who was great against Chelsea, was back out wide on the right. He's not really got that anymore as a right winger because he's a little bit older. He's some of the joy of his football has disappeared a bit lately. That's probably just tiredness, but he's not quite as exciting there. And Gundogan and De Bruyne, they looked a bit old, unfortunately, as much as they're brilliant footballers, you could see their age. It wasn't only until Guardiola introduced Savinho and went back to something that made a lot more sense, where he got a lot of joy down the left, Savinho, because Foden had the ball a lot in the first half, but he just couldn't beat his man because he's not that a winger. Where Savinho had a lot of joy, and it meant Foden went more central, Stones got a little bit further up the pitch, and the whole thing just clicked a lot more. So ultimately City were the better side and they deserved it, but we had that fright, and then the fright at the end once again with the Tano where it said Bayern or Real Madrid, and I went to bed and then woke up sort of shuddering, thinking of Vinicius Jr. or someone like that running at our right side defence, which isn't very good these days, or left side. And that was a sort of a bit of a reality check, where we're currently at, because previous years I would have relished it. Right now I'm thinking, with problems in midfield and on the transition, Guardiola coming out afterwards and saying all these teams are better than us, it was an almost exact quote, listed a whole bunch of teams. It's reasonably sobering, because I don't expect us to go far, because if we somehow get past Bayern or Real, which is weird to say given how positive we've been over the years, we've got Atletico or Bayer Leverkusen after that, and I just don't really see City in the current state, unless something happens in the transfer window or we just find a lot of form. I don't see us getting past that, because I think of all the good intentions that there are weaknesses that have sort of shown up this season in the squad.
Yeah, and Charles, I don't know how much you've got to see of that Man City game, but it seemed to be a performance which would give encouragement to Arsenal ahead of the weekend, especially as Stephen alluded to there. I thought Mateus Nunes again was caught out for the Bruges goal. That's an area of attack for Arsenal. So it seemed like an encouraging performance to watch for Arsenal. When they watch it back, they'll see lots of opportunities to hurt City.
Yeah, I think they certainly will. I mean, I didn't see too much of the game. I saw the highlights. Obviously, I was watching Arsenal, but yeah, there's definitely areas that Arsenal will be looking to sort of attack when City come to town on Sunday. But look, this is Manchester City at the end of the day, and they did find a way to win yesterday, and deservedly so. Certainly from what I saw in the second half, Savinho definitely looked like he changed the game. I imagine he's earned himself a starting spot against Arsenal at the weekend, so they're going to set themselves up a little bit differently than they did in that first half. But look, they were never going to not go through yesterday. Even when that goal went, they went 1-0 down. You knew the second half sort of Alamo was going to come, and it did in the end. And they are starting to score some goals now, Manchester City, which is a worry. I'd much rather be facing City from about 6 weeks ago on Sunday than the City are going to turn up now with a little bit of confidence and some form behind them. It would have been nice to them rolled into town just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I had some doubt that they would go through at some point, or some doubt, some hope, whichever way you want to look at it, that they might crash out. Well, in terms of Arsenal, then there was obviously a lot less jeopardy on that game in Girona. Arteta used the opportunity to rotate in some parts. Some key players still made the chip. Some key players still played the full game. What did you make of it? Because those fringe players that came in, Ranieri, probably not a fringe player anymore, but it scored a great goal. Second youngest Englishman to score in the Champions League after only Jude Bellingham. And there was a goal for Jorginho as well from the penalty spot. But then at the other end of the spectrum, you got Neto, who had a shocker for that opening, for that Girona goal. And, he hasn't been seen much. I don't know if he'll be seen much more after that mistake. And then Raheem Sterling as well, former Man City player, of course, missing that penalty. Just feels like nothing going right for him right now.
Yeah, there was never anything more certain than that penalty not going in. You could genuinely see in his face as he was waiting to take it. I don't know why they gave, sometimes you give these sort of sympathy penalties. Arsenal did it to Kai Havertz last season at Bournemouth just to try and get him up and running. And you can kind of see why they do it, but that was just such a massive error. Because Raheem Sterling is not very good at penalties in the first place. And he was just standing there and the camera was on him. He had to wait a while. We had to respot the ball. And it's like, this is never, ever going in. So instead of giving him that sort of lift, he looked absolutely distraught at the full-time whistle when he went off. So that backfired massively. He actually played pretty well, I thought. Well, maybe that's pushing it a little bit. But certainly by Sterling's standards, since he's been at Arsenal this season, he had an okay game and was pretty lively and was involved. So for him to come off looking as dejected as he did, it really didn't work, that decision. But it was a good win for Arsenal. Like you said, it was all about making changes, resting some key players ahead of the game against City. They've allowed themselves to be in that position with their strong campaign they've had in the Champions League. And they found themselves behind it. I don't know what Neto was doing for that goal, honestly. I mean, he must have just totally lost his bearings. I mean, it was so fortunate he didn't stop it, and because that would have left Arsenal for 70 minutes playing again with 10 men ahead of the game against Man City, and all those extra minutes in tired legs, it would not have been ideal. So it was a real fortunate that it went through his hands. But they came back well, turned it around. Like I said, Ranieri's goal was fantastic. I just love the intent that he shows when he's on the ball. There's no fear in him whatsoever. It's very, very rare you see that from a 17-year-old, the way he's come into the team this season. And he just attacks the goal. It's just real purpose when he's on the ball. Mikel says he sees him maybe potentially transitioning into more of a central sort of false nine type player. And I'm not sure I agree with that, but I get what he means, because he's just all about the goal. You think back to his goal at Brighton on New Year's Eve when he got it, there was a chance he could have squared it, but as soon as he saw the sort of the white post in front of him, it was just all about scoring. He did that again yesterday, and just such a talent. He really is. It's Arsenal been very fortunate this season to have two breakthrough stars in Lewis Skelly and Ranieri coming to the team. And like you said, it's not really, you don't really view it as rotation when they're playing now. They've done so well when they're in the side. You kind of view them as regular first teamers now.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to the Arsenal City game. Why we're here to discuss this. I think at the start of the season, a lot of people had this ringed in their calendar as a massive title battle, maybe even a title decider. The way things have gone the last two seasons hasn't really turned out that way because of a variety of factors. Liverpool, setting the tone at the top of the table, Man City dropping off hugely. Arsenal sort of where they were at the same stage of last season, but obviously last season they went on that incredible run. So it turns out to be, second versus fourth. Man City out of the title race by for all intents and purposes. I want to get your opinion, Stephen, on where this Man City team is right now, because definitely we've seen a huge improvement in results lately. They've only lost once since Christmas. They've picked up some big wins in that time. I think since Christmas, only Newcastle have got more points. No one scored more goals. But then you've also, in the mix of that, got those collapses against PSG and Brentford, some performances which haven't been as convincing as maybe the results suggest. So coming into this big game against Arsenal, possibly their hardest game of the season away to Arsenal. I think they certainly would have thought that before the season started. Where is this City team now? Are they as good as the results are suggesting, or are they back yet, or will we find that out this weekend?
No, I don't think we're quite as good as the results suggest. There are signs of life, absolutely, but I think a lot of it's been. Now it sounds silly, but it's a lot of it's been down to individual quality, or just the quality of the plays, not necessarily the structure of the team, if that makes sense. I think the weaknesses are very much there, but we've got some strengths that have got us through the games. My biggest fear is playing sides that are incredibly organised and know what they're doing, and who capitalise on City's weaknesses, which is the centre of the pitch. We are old there. This is an exact quote from Guardiola last night. He said, "We're an old team. Kevin is 34, Gundo is 33, Matteo, and we don't have replacement." Said, "This is why I'm a little bit scared to play these transitional teams against Newcastle, Liverpool, Arsenal, Villa, Brighton. They are miles away better than us." That's Guardiola saying these teams are miles better than us on the transition. And I think this is the biggest issue that we got potentially. When the last time we played a team that was structurally really good with midfielders that control it, physically younger than us and so on, was PSG, and they were miles better than us. And City came into that game off the back of a few decent results as well, including bagging 6 against Ipswich, 8. I know it's only Salford, but we'd scored a lot of goals and we were confident. We beat, West Ham, Leicester before that as well. So we went into that feeling confident, and we flew out the blocks really aggressively, and then realised we couldn't actually keep the ball because PSG were younger, fitter, had a better structure. And this is the issue I've got right now. As much as the talent is still obviously there, and Marmoush and the new lads will be a bit of a shot in the arm in terms of the energy for the side, the problems still very much are the midfield is Kovacic, Gundogan, Bernardo, De Bruyne, all these players who are 30 plus who just cannot run in the same way that they used to be able to. And that's the problem we've got, where Arsenal, they'll go into that. I don't know what the midfield three will be, but it'll be a damn sight livelier than Man City's. That's almost certain. And a lot more players at the peak, basically, And so, there's a chance. We've got a chance always. There's too much quality there going forward. Marmoush seems a superstar in the making. You can see it in a player when they thrive off the big occasion, and he obviously has that in his eye. There's a sort of glint to it, which is very exciting to watch. Savinho, just of course, he's had a game-changing performance in the Champions League for City. He could be involved. Foden's finding form again. De Bruyne is always good at the Emirates, like always. He's just sort of his training ground, the Emirates. Sometimes, I'm not sure he'd be quite the same this season given his age and so on, but he loves it. So then Haaland, he'll be up for it as well. So we have the quality going forward. It's just there's a big old hole in the centre of that pitch. And it depends what Guardiola does. First half of last night of the Champions League game, he tried to do the treble thing, but we had no creativity. Against Chelsea, it was very different. He decided to unleash Vardiol and Nunes, and they were running off Haaland, getting past him. They were further up the pitch than Haaland at times. We sort of played Marmoush and Foden dead close, tucked into Haaland with Nunes and Vardiol bombing forward. But instead of having two midfielders and an attacking midfielder, he just told Kovacic, Gundogan and Silva, just sit deep, and that's what he did, and let them just hit the runners. I'd be surprised if he does that again. I want him to do something similar to that, because I think that's our best chance, is having 5 just stay back, your 2 centre-backs and your 3 midfielders, and let the full-backs get forward and join the 3 attackers. That's probably our best bet. But I think he's got a selection issue. I don't know if he would not be tempted to play John Stones, a centre-back who naturally is just so good at stepping in. He'll want to play Kevin De Bruyne. Kevin De Bruyne doesn't fit into that midfield three in terms of sitting deep, because he won't do that, Kevin De Bruyne. So I don't know what he's going to do. And my gut still tells me, as much as, our form has improved and we're a better side, we're not Arsenal's level of complete right now in terms of, fitness and cohesion with structure. We've got very, very obvious glaring weaknesses. And we're also the worst in the country statistically by some way at defending our box. So if there's one team you don't want to play, it's pretty good at corners, it's probably Arsenal. I've said a lot of negative stuff there. It's still City. There's still quality. And Arsenal, there's a tag that follows them around when it comes to title races. You can... It's something to do with a plastic shaped thing that contains water. You could say that it's probably unfair, but Arsenal have had a history of sort of throwing things away towards the end of the season. They could look City in the eyes, and it could be too much for them. And City could have the quality, and it might end up a disappointing draw for Arsenal or a surprise win for Man City. It's very possible. I still feel Arsenal will have too much. I'm fine with that. I think it's where City are right now. But I don't have the confidence going into this game that I did in previous years.
Yeah, I mean, Charles, for all City's troubles this season, if they win this game, they're 3 points behind Arsenal, which seems crazy.
Yeah, it does. Because Stephen paints a bad picture of Manchester City. That's like playing a relegation threat in the side.
Well, that's not fun. Was that bad at one point? That's the thing. It's funny because we've gone from having the worst form in the league, literally, to now the best form. And look, I'm saying that's the current juxtaposition of the City side. The mistakes that we had are still there. We've just been very good going forward, but these teams are still getting chances against us. So,
yeah, could be worse. Could be Tottenham.
Yes, of course, it's always Tottenham.
The thing with Arsenal going into this game is, I get what you're saying, but I just think, if Saka was there, I'd be feeling a lot more confident. You talk about Arsenal being one of the sides who are good in transition. I'm not sure that's really True. Pep might have named them, but I don't see Arsenal as a great transition side at the moment. They're quite one-paced. I'm interested to see what Mikel's going to do in terms of, as Ranieri forced himself into the start 11 on that right-hand side, or is it going to be Martinelli, Trossard on the wings with Havertz up front? The midfield, I imagine, yesterday he played Partey for 45 minutes at right back in the first half and then brought on Timber for 45 minutes in the second half. So I think that was pre-planned because you've got to protect both of them, basically, because if anything happens to one of those two, they're screwed. So I imagine Partey comes back into midfield and it'll be Partey with Rice and Odegaard ahead of him, which is strong. It's, there's runners there, especially in Rice and Odegaard. They're not going to give Man City much time at all. They're constant, they're athletes and they don't stop running. So I think that's going to be a real key area, as you point out. Defensively, I think Arsenal are going to be strong. Gabriel and Saliba relish coming up against Haaland. I think they love it. Haaland's got the better of them at times, but they've got the better of him at times as well. It's been a really good battle over the last couple of seasons. That, the stay humble jibe is definitely going to be at the forefront of Arsenal's minds. I think it hasn't gone away. It's certainly been at the forefront of the fans' minds.
He was right.
And I don't know what that was. I don't know.
He was saying, don't say anything until you won something. And he was not wrong.
They weren't saying anything. They were walking past him. And he decided.
I think they probably were saying something. Let's be honest, mate. We know what they talk. They all talk at each other. Of course they were. They were all giving each other something.
He was too busy picking a fight with a 17-year-old at that point. So that's definitely going to be the forefront of everyone's mind, which will be interesting. And those two will be really, really up for it. And Haaland will be bang up for it as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I think it's going to be a really good game. It's not going to be a thriller end to end. I doubt Arsenal City games just don't tend to be that way. I think it's going to be more of it's going to be, it's going to be a tight contest. It's going to be physical. Maybe that is going to play into Arsenal's hands. We'll have to wait and see on it. But it's a must win for Arsenal, no doubt about it. I still think the title, even if they win this game, the title's a real long shot. I think Liverpool are just in such a strong position. I just don't see them coming back to Arsenal. And to be honest, I don't think Arsenal are going to be able to keep up the pace to be able to reel them in anyway, even if Liverpool do slip up. This isn't an Arsenal team that's going to go on that run that they went on last season. They just don't score enough goals. And I know there's 4 days left of the window, whatever it is, and they're certainly trying to do something last minute, but even if they do, I just can't see it. So I don't really view this game as it's a must win for Arsenal to win the title, because I think that the ship has kind of sailed already on that. But it'd just be a big win to take them into this sort of run in that they've got now to put City behind them. What would be 9 points, I think, wouldn't it? If they could do that, and then they can really sort of focus on attempting to chase City down, Liverpool down. But I don't see it being crucial in terms of the title race.
Yeah, I mean, where would you say Arsenal are as a team? We've spoken about where Man City are as a team, but Arsenal, again, I've mentioned this to you before, but their form sort of slide under the radar a little bit in terms of it being better than I think the perception is. They're on their longest ever unbeaten run in the Premier League under Arteta at the moment, which came as a surprise to me when I read that, because it doesn't feel like it, because it doesn't really feel like there's been a really good, convincing, or few and far between good, convincing performances. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. But there hasn't been. They're just not scoring enough goals to be able to do that. Every game's kind of on a knife edge when it comes to Arsenal. Even yesterday, it's 2-1 right until the end. They had a goal ruled out for offside that was originally given. That would have been a 2-2 draw yesterday. They just don't score enough goals to give themselves breathing space for it to be a really comfortable day's work for them. And without Saka, they just haven't got that, absolute elite attacker that can take the game away from teams. So, they're very, very hard to beat. So they don't lose many games. They only lost 2 games in the Premier League this season. And so, you talk about the unbeaten run. That's why, because they just don't lose many, but they're just drawing too many games. They're not scoring enough goals to win these games that they should be winning. And that's been their problem all season. You can count on one hand how many games they've had a 2-goal lead on, for example. It's just always one goal or not. I put it to Arteta in a press conference a few weeks ago. At that point, I think Arsenal they'd scored 1 or no goals in 14 of their 31 games in all competitions at that point. So just a shade under half of their games, they'd only scored, 1 or 0 goals. So and they'd only won 2 of those games. So that's what really, really cost them. They're just not scoring enough goals. It's been the case since the start of the season. I think it'll carry on, whatever happens in the transfer window between now and the end of the season. It's just kind of the way the season's gone. So look, Arsenal are a good team. They're a decent team. They are very, very hard to beat because they've got an excellent defence and providing David Raya's in goal at the weekend, by the way. But they're just not scoring enough goals. They just do not have the quality to score enough goals in that final third of the pitch, and it's cost them all season.
So this is going to be a stinker of a game, according to us two, anyway. So
You remember the game last season, the Martinelli deflected winner. I mean, that was a pretty much a stinker.
Horrendous. That's the only thing I remember that game. Yeah, it was so bad, so bad.
Yeah.
Well, as a neutral, in my mind, I am viewing Saliba and Gabriel and Haaland going at it like they do. I can see Rice striding through that Man City midfield with quite a lot of ease, and Arsenal probably coming out
missing the chance at the end of that move.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. We'll get to predictions at the end. I want to hear what sort of importance and expectations you're going into this game with. Start with you, Stephen. Obviously, most Man City fans, or all Man City fans, would have been hoping and expecting this to be a more important game at this stage of the season than it actually is. It feels, Charles has described it there as, if they are to hang on in the title race, absolute must win. Because of the margin for error in the title race being so much smaller than the top four race, it seems like a bigger game for Arsenal than for Man City. Would you agree with that?
Well, I mean, for us, the margin for error for the top four is tiny as well. I mean, there's literally 4 points between Forest, City, Newcastle, Chelsea, Bournemouth. So like all these teams, wild that Bournemouth are that far up, but they are. So look, our expectations have shifted this season. Now we're not hunting down Liverpool or Arsenal, though we could be close to Arsenal, but we're not realistically. Liverpool or Arsenal, one of those two are going to win the league. We're trying to get top four. We have to. City are. Their season will be defined by whether we make it now at this point, because we simply have to, given, the money they want to spend in the summer and the aims of the club. So the expectations of this game, it depends who you ask as a fan. There's some fans who rightfully believe in the brilliance of this side and where we've been, who will probably feel like, oh, this could be the game where we're back, There are some who have been watching for a long time who are eternally pessimistic because that's what they were taught when they were growing up. I'm somewhere in the middle. I've grown up watching City be terrible, then also got used to us being pretty good as well. So I feel like it's very possible it could go either way. My expectations are of a City that will come out and be aggressive. I'm looking at the Marmoush factor. I feel like that could be really useful because my expectation has shifted because of him coming in. Because against Chelsea, it was so refreshing to see another runner ahead of Erling Haaland. And like for years, it's been Saliba and Gabriel sort of physically battling Haaland. And I'm going to say, go for it. Please do that again. Because now we've got a player who will run in behind. Essentially, we've got two strikers, and that does undoubtedly change the dynamic of this Manchester City side and how they attack. And that will ask questions, of Arsenal, because they're so used to playing against City in a certain way that I think the signing there is forced it by hand to change how we play. So I'm looking forward to that. And I think there's more of a confidence in me now than there was be a month ago that we're going to score. I think we will score. I think that feels reasonably nailed on. Yet I think, Charles is right. Arsenal aren't creating much, in terms of goals at the moment, and a lot of it comes from set pieces. There's nothing wrong with that, of course, but that if a lot of your big goals tend to come from set pieces, it points to it's like the goal difference for Arsenal is, put it this way, it's not probably where they think they should be, when it comes to winning the league and so on. So there is sort of flaws for Arsenal too. I still think the Arsenal are a better side than City right now, even if they have struggled a little bit. So I haven't got full expectations City going to win, but I don't feel, despite everything I've said, that there's no chance City can get from this. I really don't. I feel like we could go to the Emirates and frustrate them. John Stones being fully fit, by the way, makes a massive difference as well. I say fully fit. I don't think John Stones is ever fully fit, but he's fit, and available. And he had a good performance in the Champions League for us. He was brilliant, actually. So him being there, Vardiel off the back of a good game against Chelsea, a bit of confidence. Still not fully sure on Nunes at right back, but he'll play anyway. I'm hoping Guardiola is just more pragmatic and tells him to feel to sit. And at that point, I think the expectations are that we could do something. It's not impossible. And I think the game is really important. I actually think it is. When you look at the fixtures we've got, City's run is absurdly hard. I'm just going to quickly Google it just to remind me of the actual games, but it's so aggressive. We've got Arsenal away, then Newcastle, then Liverpool, the Spurs. You can roll your eyes at that, but City for us, that's a nightmare. Trust me, we always lose against Spurs. Then we've got Forest, we've got Brighton, so then we've got Manchester Derby as well, Leicester between that. But it's just a run of games that is not attractive on paper at all. So this game, if we can get a result against Arsenal, it gives us a little bit of leeway, because I'm expecting some points dropped at some point. So that would be huge for us in the top four race, because this next 5 or 6 games is going to define the rest of our season.
And how about the Arsenal fans, Charles? Does it go along similar to that? Arsenal will go into this game as favourites because of they're at home and because of their position in the table. But obviously, until quite recently, Man City had an incredible record against Arsenal, won 12 in a row between 2017 and 2023. The tide has turned a little bit. Arsenal unbeaten in their last 3 now. But what are Arsenal fans expecting from this game? Are they expecting to win, or are they wary that this is still Man City?
I'll certainly be wary that it's Manchester City, but they'll be expecting to win. It's a big week for Arsenal because it's Liverpool-Everton, isn't it? In midweek next week, the game in hand's coming up. So if Arsenal can beat City, and then can sort of sit back and see what happens in that Merseyside derby at Goodison next week for the game in hand, things could look pretty decent in the table again in the space of sort of 7 days. So it's a really big game for us.
Liverpool at Bournemouth as well.
They're at Bournemouth as well this weekend, exactly. So it's a game that Arsenal need to absolutely need to win. They're not going to be waving the white flag. I may say that the title's over, but Arsenal won't be waving the white flag. Absolutely not. And they'll be determined to put City in their place for this game. And I am wary the way the City play. I watched the game against. Well, I was travelling back actually from the Arsenal match at the weekend, but I was listening to the City Chelsea game on the radio, and then I watched it when I got back in. And when I look at, say, the Guardiola goal, when it was Núñez who got through, wasn't it? And and then Guardiola tapped it in. But the chance that Guardiola got before that he put just wide when he ran in. I look at where Arsenal's weaknesses is, and I could see City getting in down that. They've had some joy going direct against Arsenal in the last couple of years, City. Yeah, and it was the Wolves game last weekend, actually, when I was coming back listening to that game. Wolves had a chance to equalise late on when Nori got in down the left-hand side from Jose Sarr's clearance, and Arsenal just sort of got caught napping a little bit, and it was direct. They went down, and the wing-back got in down the left-hand side, and suddenly was one-on-one when David Raya had to make a save. And I was just watching those City goals in the first half, and I was getting those chances. I just think that could be an area that Guardiola really looks to exploit against Arsenal. So Arsenal are going to have to be really switched on, especially with those runners that you talked about. But they are defensively very, very good, and they love these sort of games. They relish it. I mean, it's been about 3 years since they've lost a match to one of the so-called big six now. They're very, very strong in these big games against the big teams. They get themselves up for it. I think the first goal is going to be key. I know it sounds really cliche, but it is for this Arsenal team. It's so important for them to score first. If they could do that with the defence that they've got, I'd back them to go on and win the game. But if City score, which I imagine they probably will because they tend to, if they score first and Arsenal suddenly facing up to having to score 2 goals against them, this Arsenal team, I think that's going to be a struggle. So I think getting that first goal is going to be so important.
Yeah, that record you mentioned against the top 6 is complete contrast to the Arsenal of a few years ago, where that was the biggest criticism, that they didn't have that, the sturdiness to see those big games out and to get points from them. I mean, which note, where do you think, we'll start with you, Stephen, where do you think this game might be won and lost? We mentioned the corner threat from Arsenal, that they've unsurprisingly scored more goals from set pieces than any other team this season, but Man City have actually conceded the fewest via that route. But one of the 2 they have conceded was against Arsenal in the reverse fixture. Arsenal carried that threat. Is that where you see maybe the difference lying, or are there too many weaknesses maybe in the Man City openness in midfield, and maybe that will make the difference?
Yeah, it's that Odegaard, Partey, Rice. That's a midfield that City can't cope with physically. That would bully Bernardo, Kovacic, Gundogan. It will do, but it's one part of the pitch. I suspect Guardiola will be a bit more pragmatic. I think how he played against Chelsea, where he just told his midfielders to sit deep. I think he'll do that. It'll be won or lost for City based on the success of that tactic, really. If we can defend the corner, Arsenal, of course, will want it aggressively. The fact that it's away from home doesn't really give City much of a reason to be positive either. If it's won, it probably will be because of the energy of Savinho or Marmoush. Foden's in good form right now, and he's such a confidence player, Phil Foden, that, with Marmoush, Foden, Savinho, or whoever's there running off Haaland and Vardiel, I think they will do the same. I think they'll tell Vardiel and Núñez to make those runs still, because it's such a potent force with their pace. So that's where City's best chance is be more direct. We're going at times with Marmoush that close to Haaland. There's the old school 2 striker thing going on. I think the Guardiola is very much aware that right now we can't keep the ball as well as we used to. So the only chance we've got, if we're not keeping it very well, is probably just utilise the runners a little bit. And Haaland was great against Chelsea. He really relished. Obviously, Arsenal are better quality than Chelsea defensively, but he likes running behind, and we have had joy in the past with that. So I think that's where City will look to sort of capitalise on Arsenal. And defensively, if we can keep it tight somehow, we'll see.
Guardiola's got the whole country down to League Two playing tiki-taka football. Now he reverts to long ball stuff.
Neil Warnock apparently is the reason. He said Neil Warnock did it against Cardiff years ago, and he thought he was inspired by it. So there we go.
There we go. All comes back to Neil Warnock all the time. How about you, Charles? Do you share the same sentiments about where this game might be won and lost?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, Arsenal are just going to need to take their chances, what they've not done all season, and they're going to need to take their chances in this game. You can't afford to be missing some of the chances that they do, especially against City. I don't think the set-piece weapon is as potent right now since Bukayo Saka's gone, because, Arsenal set-piece, it didn't matter what side it was. You had Rice whipping him in from the right, Saka whipping him from the left. But, one of those key players has gone now, and while Rice is still delivering like he always has done, the delivery from the other side has just not been as good. It's a lot more floaty with Odegaard or Wanyeri, whoever's taken them. It's just don't have that whip that Saka did, who did it perfectly for the Gabriel goal at the Etihad, for example, early in the season. So I don't think the set piece threat from Arsenal is anywhere near as dangerous as it has been at times this season. I think if Arsenal are going to win this game, they're going to have to do it in open play, and they're going to have to take the chances that they create. So I think that's going to be key. It's what's held them back all season. At times it was they weren't creating much, but it's not really that now, because they are actually creating chances. It's just the amount they miss, and they can't afford to do that against City. They're going to have to be really, really clinical when those chances come. I think the fact that they were able to rest a lot of their players yesterday, I think Havertz came on for the last 20, but it was really important not to give him 90 minutes or any significant game time yesterday. He needed a rest. He was literally had to be carried off against Wolves. At the end, he was so tired. And so I think that will be a boost for Arsenal. They've been able to sort of put some rest into some of those legs. Like Declan Rice didn't play much. Partey only played 45 minutes. Saliba didn't play at all. That's a boost for Arsenal. Timber only got 45 minutes. Martinelli came on for like the last 15. So they are going to be fresh, you would hope, for this game, even though they had to travel to Spain, and that might well sort of tip the balance in their favour a little bit, because City, it was quite a high intense game for them last night, and it was very, very different for Arsenal. Yeah,
it sounds, Charles, like you might be more confident with someone like Ollie Watkins leading the line.
That would be nice. Not going to happen. Not going to happen, is it? But it would be nice.
Do you not think that's going through before the deadline?
I don't see. I mean, Emery's comments were quite interesting yesterday. He didn't absolutely shut it down. And he it was like, well, I'll pay up then. If you want to sign him, pay up, basically. But I just don't see any world that Villa let Duran and Watkins go on the last couple of days of the transfer window. Even if they sign João Felix, it wouldn't make any sense to me. And financially, it might make sense for them. I mean, they're probably not going to get the sort of money that Arsenal are offering for Watkins ever again. He's 30 this year, so. But it just wouldn't make any sense for them to do that, would it? They've gone through into the knockout, straight through to the knockouts of the Champions League. They've got a lot to play for this season. So how could you basically take out both your strikers? So I think if the 4 points
still Champions League spots as well, so it's nothing really, is it?
It just wouldn't make any sense. And João Felix isn't going to come in and score the sort of goals that Duran and the Watkins scores either. So you just significantly weaken yourself. So if Duran deal hadn't have happened, I think maybe Villa would have had to have thought about it just purely from a business point of view, because, as I said, that sort of money for a player who turns 30 this year, it's the last chance they'll have to get any sort of significant money for him, I imagine. But I think that the Duran deal just totally kills that one dead, and Arsenal have to look elsewhere. Maybe Matthias tells someone like that. I'd have loved Watkins though. I have to say, I think he would certainly be a now signing. It's a lot of money for someone that age. You're not getting any resale value out of him, but he would come in and he'd score goals. And Wrighty wasn't that much younger than him when Arsenal signed him from Crystal Palace, and that didn't turn out too bad. So I wouldn't be too bothered about the age either. I think he would have been really, really good. And he's a massive Arsenal fan. Maybe he'll kick up a massive fuss in the next couple of days and try to force his way out, because I know it's his dream to play for Arsenal. But yeah, I can't see Villa entertaining it.
Yeah, I mean, losing both would just be catastrophic to Villa's season if they, as you say, even if they do bring in Felix, because Felix isn't a number 9.
No.
I mean, not to stray too far away from the Arsenal-Man City debate, but does that not shine a light when you see, City have got their business done, quite a lot of it quite early on? Does that not shine a light of why have Arsenal not done that move earlier in the window? Because they might have got him and then been able to keep Duran, but now Duran's out the door. There's, as we say, almost no chance of them letting Watkins go as well.
Yeah. It's just a familiar story. We tried FC, as Arsenal fans like to call Arsenal in the transfer window.
Reeks of PR, doesn't it?
Yeah, it kind of does. And you look at City, and they've done their business early. Maybe they overpaid a little bit for Mamouche, but that's what you got to do in January if you want to get a player out. Arsenal have been chasing Benjamin Sesko for a long, long time, and I said it to you, Barney, I think at the start of the window, even if you have to overpay for 10 million this month to get it done and bring it forward from what you're possibly going to do in the summer, just do it. Sometimes needs must. And Arsenal have got no, you can guarantee if they don't sign anyone, that the game after the transfer window, Kai Havertz goes down injured within 10 minutes. It will happen. Mark my word. The way this season has gone, that will definitely happen. And then they're literally left with no forwards. So, and the second, Saka got injured on the 21st of December. As soon as that happened, even before the Gabriel Jesus injury, as soon as Saka got injured, it was so glaringly obvious they didn't have enough in attack to get them through the second half of the season. They should have been ready to go. And I know it's easy to say that, and it's not Football Manager and all that, but City have shown that if you go out, even if you have to overpay this month, you can get players in. It is possible. And I just feel Arsenal sat on their hands far too long.
You're right, by the way. I agree with you. I think Arsenal should have been way more aggressive. It's very obvious their weaknesses, and you can win the league. And 3 seasons being that close in a row is a bit of a hammer blow. And I think sometimes you just have to go out and put your big boy pants on and literally just splash the cash. And I think Arsenal can afford it. They can afford it. And I think it's I think you're right. Watkins early on in this window, and I'm looking at Arsenal thinking could win the league there because there's goals there, a lot of them.
Yeah. It's got to have been that Watkins wasn't high up their list or anything, because he wasn't really named. He's been mentioned in the past, but wasn't really being named earlier in this window. And he's more available earlier in the window than he is later in the window.
Yeah, it feels like it. I mean, I've never had Ollie Watkins' name said to me when talking about Arsenal transfers in the build-up to this month. So it does feel like one that's kind of they've looked around late on in the window and thought, there's a chance there maybe. He has lost his place in the team at times to Duran this season. Maybe there is a chance to get that done. And it's been a bit of a late move. But yeah, I mean, Sesko is the one. He's the one that they want, absolutely want. And I'm convinced they'll get him in the summer. But you surely could have got that done this month. It would have cost a little bit more money, but surely you could have tempted Leipzig into a deal this month. And they should have done it January 1st. They should have been there banging on the door with offer on the table. I'm just really, really, I was going to say surprised, but I'm not, because this is Arsenal in the transfer market. So I'm not overly shocked, but I'm very disappointed in the lack of transfer business they've done this month.
Yeah, well, we'll keep a keen eye on if anything does emerge before deadline day on Monday. Obviously, this game is on Sunday, just one day before that. And it's time for the predictions, guys. Let's start with you, Stephen. What's your prediction for this one?
I actually think we'll probably get a result. I think it'll probably be like a 1-1. I don't think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be categorised actually by frustration for both sides. I'm not expecting beautiful football. I'm expecting Arsenal fans to walk away moaning, that they're not creativity in their side, and expecting City fans to walk away going, if we had a bloody midfield that can run, we might have won that game. So I'm expecting basically just both sides to feel frustrated with the result, where it feels like an opportunity missed potentially. So I'm not really expecting a glorious game of football. I just hope there's no referee decisions that are controversial, because I cannot be bothered with that. That's all I want. Just a nice, steady, boring game of football. And I think I'm going to go for 1-1.
I think Charles will echo no refereeing controversies, especially if it was the reverse
City as well. Come on, man, imagine.
The reverse fixture, wasn't it? That Trossard got that red card with Michael Oliver's ref. That was earlier this season, wasn't it? Yeah.
Thank God Oliver's not in charge this weekend. Although I believe Peter Banks is from Liverpool, which is very nice.
They're all from somewhere, like what are they meant to do? Just silly.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree. I don't think this is going to be a very pretty game to watch. I think it will be pretty absorbing to watch, but I don't think it's going to be a very pretty game to watch. And I kind of agree. I'm not sitting on the fence predicting a draw, but I just see that's probably the most likely outcome in this game. I just don't think Arsenal are going to score enough goals to put City out of sight, and it could end up being edgy, and City end up sort of dragging them back and getting a point. So I think 1-1 or potentially even 0-0, to be honest.
Okay, I think we've done a great job of selling this game, guys. Thank you both for your time. Thank you everyone for watching and listening. Hope you enjoy the game more than we were expecting to enjoy the game by the sounds of things. And if you've liked the video, please do remember to like and subscribe on YouTube, and check out our preview and all associated articles on sportsmole.co.uk. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Stephen. And thank you everyone for watching and listening.